What up, world? It's your boy Shavaz, back again with another video. And today we're gonna break down the detractors books. If you're a scholar or historian, anybody worth their salt and study, you should know these authors. And the reason being is, if you just read these type of books, you're programming yourself, and you're not actually thinking critically about the subjects you're studying. And the reason I say you should know all of these books is because you want to know what everybody is saying about the books that you're reading. You want to actually learn a subject, learn it thoroughly enough that so whenever somebody questions you about it, they may bring up one of these books. And all of what these books have in common, not this book, but what these books have in common is this book. But before we get into this book and give you a brief explanation of this book, we're gonna break down these books. First up is Inventing Knowledge. In this book, this author tries to attack many different areas of study. And he does a very horrible job at it. He's not that great at the subjects he's talking about. Although I will say chapter number 2 is actually a good chapter. Chapter number 2 is about Christian identity. Christian identity is a correlation with the Hebrew Israelites. So if you want a good study of the Hebrew Israelites, then you should study Christian identity. Let me give you an example. Pause the video and read this yourself. So pause it right here and pause it right here. So when, just like the Hebrew Israelites, just replace white devils with black devils. This is all you gotta do. I think another piece on here. He got a good piece on here about this idea. Whenever you hear somebody say 76 trillion years, keep that out. We have another piece in here. Why I say he falls short is that he constantly talking about if, when he tries to break down the Nation of Islam. See, he already boxed himself in. If my aunt had balls, she'd be my uncle. Simple as that. He also tries to attack Leonard Jeffries. He's just a hater. And I got this simple rule that I live by. When something doesn't make sense, you look for a motivation. And his motivation is this. He's just a professor at the university. It's just that simple. So he using the book just to sell to his students so he can teach a class. So that's his motivation. So when something doesn't make sense, you look for the motivation. And that's his motivation. Simple as that. This is the weakest out of the best. Alright, next book. The infamous Not Out of Africa. Actually, I have two versions of this book. I have the ebook version, which is a different copy or a different cover. But she tries to attack this book. But she's really not attacking this book. She used this book as her excuse to attack J.A. Rogers, George G.M. James, even Marcus Garvey, Du Bois, Dr. Ben, Asante, even Frederick Douglass. And in this book, her main contentions are the Masons are based off of 17th century misunderstanding of Egypt. This book makes no sense either, man. Like, when I first got it, she said the Hyksos came from Greece. She makes wild claims and she repeats herself all over again. So she attacks. She says she's saying this, talking about this book, but this book is just her excuse to talk about these books. Cause like she rarely mentions Martin Brunel. She mentioned his name a few times, but she just using him as an excuse to attack all of the black authors. Like, let me give you an example of exactly what they do. See, they'll take, like their main point of contention is this book, especially after this book. But their main point of contention is this book. So she'll attack this book by James, and she'll lump in this guy. Some people actually like this guy, some consider him a true scholar. I don't. Like, his books are not intellectually fulfilling. I won't attack him because I'll never go against another brother, but his books are not intellectually fulfilling. And she'll lump these books in to talk about these books. She'll say you crazy if you read these books based on these authors. That's how she attacks these books. Alright, so before we move on to the next book, I'm going to show you the big controversy of or how this book became a controversy. This book is basically saying 17th and 18th century scholars were racist, the Aryan model. And just the name alone was controversy. Had a lot of people pissed off. And they didn't like this, so they started responding right off. This is where she comes in at. This is where she comes in. And they started having these battles. They started doing these interviews on the radio, started writing articles back and forth. And I know you remember this debate they had between her, Dr. John Henry Clark, Martin Brunel, and some other guy. They did more than one, but you probably seen the one that's on YouTube. But she didn't just stop there. She had a real, I don't want to say hard on, but she had a real problem with all the black authors. So what she did is, after everybody read this book, and Brunel was like, this is a weak book. It's very repetitive. And she said simple things like the Greeks didn't steal, and that the Greeks were more than likely influenced by the Egyptians, but they didn't steal. But how would she know if all she studied is Hellenistic period from Greeks? She didn't study any of the African continental people. All she studied was Greek. But anyway, after she realized this book was weak, even though this is her most famous work, after she realized this book was weak, she teamed up with a whole bunch of other authors. She teamed up and released this book. While she was working on this book and editing this book, Martin Brunel was like, let me get in on this new book I hear you working on. Let me get in on this book. So instead of people having to purchase my new book, they can get all the information in one place. So let me get in on this book, and everybody can come to their own conclusion. She released this book anyway with all the different authors, even with Frank M. Snowden. Frank M. Snowden is the guy that Ivan Van Sertima confronted. But look at all the different authors. Anyway, so since she didn't let him get in on this book, Brunel came back with this book. I haven't actually read this book yet. I only purchased it for one reason and one reason only. But he's making a response to all of those authors in the other book. Since she couldn't get at Brunel on her own. I purchased this book for just this reason. If I can remember the page. I purchased this book for this reason. Brunel actually takes up for Dr. Ben and Dr. Clark. Page 376 and 377 if you was to purchase this book. See, he even talks about the Not Out of Africa book. What he basically says is, he comes to the same conclusion as all those other authors that this isn't a good book. He says, this isn't a good book, but why are you focusing solely on this book? There are other books out there. And he takes up for Dr. Ben and John Henry Clark by saying they don't have access to the colleges, they don't have all the funding that she has. and they're working on their own off their own dollar. But there was a nice little intellectual sparring going on. She's still alive. Bornell died in the early 2000s, I think. Like, on to the last book. This is the book I really want to talk about. But this book is the most researched book. I don't know if the guy had a research team. Well, he had to have a research team, but this is the most researched book. And I know he researched a lot, but he didn't actually read the book. And it's very easy to tell.